The Mesoamerican culture area is unique to the Americas because it is one of only three places in the world where a writing system was invented to represent grammar, the others being the Near East and China. Hello, I took this sweep at the Site Museum of Monte Alban, an ancient Zapotec capital in central Oaxaca, Mexico. For over 1,000 years, the Zapotec wrote in glyphs, remaining an extensive and enigmatic body of texts. Recall the definition of glyph from a previous episode in the playlist. Glyphs are abstract images symbolizing concepts, sounds, or other communicated signs. For this episode of the Native American Writing Systems playlist, we will be looking at glyphic texts from two of Mesoamerica's earliest civilizations. The Zapotec, whose script I ponder here, and the Olmec, whose culture dates as early as 1200 BC in the southern Gulf of Mexico. Glyphs have been of interest in the history of Mesoamerican scripts because they have been key to an ongoing discussion over the representation of language, where pictures end and symbolism begins. The hottest contention is over classifying the earliest things that look like writing, notably from the Olmec civilization. This artifact, the Ahuelican tablet at the Dallas Museum of Art, has a deliberate arrangement of abstract signs that are hinting at a mythical event. Anthropologists are familiar enough with the related beliefs among the Maya and other Mesoamerican civilizations to read the symbols' meanings. The stepped object in the lower half is a mountain, either an actual one or its metaphoric representation with a temple. Above it is the world tree, whose roots reach the underworld and whose branches touch the sky. Four stony objects probably represent the four cardinal directions extending from the tree at world center, or they could be grains of maize. Atop is a square with a large X, recalling the Maya glyph for sky, and framing it are 13 knobs that are likely counting the 13 levels of the heavens. This cosmic design is known from later cultures such as the Maya and Aztecs. Near the bottom is a concave shape similar to Maya and Zapotec images of jaws opening from the Earth's surface into the underworld. And at the very base are three dots, perhaps like the three hearthstones in a Maya creation myth. So, without knowing the artist's language, we can tell that the figures on this plaque depict the specific ideas combined into a mythical text. In the description, I link to Art Museum commentary on the object. Also from the time and region of the Olmec, the Cascajal Block was discovered in the late 1990s in South Veracruz. It stands at just over a foot tall, and its front surface has 62 glyphs. A major theory on the history of the Olmec is that they spoke a language ancestral to the indigenous tongue still used in the southern Gulf of Mexico, namely members of the Mihesokian language family. Linguists such as Surid Vikman have reconstructed a Proto-Mihesokian language that the Olmec could have spoken around 3,000 years ago, the approximate date of the Cascajal Block. Several of the 62 glyphs are repeated in this text, and many in fact have forms that appear in other art. Even the infamous Cudi glyph, which resembles an ant, has a sculpture style from the nearby site of San Lorenzo, Veracruz. Unfortunately, there are not enough other texts to compare with, so the exact meaning remains a mystery for now. Although there is no consensus on how far Olmec art could qualify as writing, its influence on the Maya script is without question. This stone axe or celt from Guerrero in southern Mexico has at least four qualities that the Maya would adopt in their use of writing. 1. The main figure is a powerful ruler of supernatural proportion, standing in profile. 2. All other details are peripheral to the figure. 3. The Maya adopted several of these symbols into glyphs. 4. The image is carved into an even stone surface. The playlist will continue on these themes in an upcoming episode on the Mayan glyphs. The so-called Isthmian script of the Epi-Olmec culture, dating to the first centuries before and after Christ, has also been an important topic on the evolution of writing in Mesoamerica. I talk about this subject in a video on Mesoamerica's earliest calendar texts. Unlike the scarce remains of Olmec writing, a full body of texts in a single script for any Native American culture appeared for the first time among the Zapotec of Oaxaca. Many of these texts come from Monte Alban, which will be the focus for this part of the video. Anthropologist Javier Urcid noticed that Zapotec writing began between 500 and 300 BC. And it was not only among the earliest but also among the most dynamic and enduring scripts in Mesoamerica, with up to 14 centuries of continual use. Many of the world's writing systems work at a distinct level of grammar, from the individual sounds in an alphabet to the morphemes found in logographic script. Logographic script represents morphemes, the basic units of meaning in a language. An example of morphemes in English: it invigorates them. The morphemes in this sentence specify number, gender, and case for the pronouns, and action and tense for the verb. This example shows that English words can be built from a single morpheme or several. If you'd like to discuss other examples, please drop a comment. Logographic scripts use characters to represent these morpheme units, and the characters in such scripts number from the hundreds to the thousands. Examples have included Egyptian hieroglyphs, Sumerian cuneiform, Chinese Hanzi, and returning to the Americas, Zapotec glyphs such as these. Scholarly consensus is that every Mesoamerican writing system used glyphs at the logographic level to some degree. This happened especially when treating calendar signs as individual morphemes. The 20 days of the ancient calendar are ubiquitous to writing in Mesoamerica, and knowing how to look for the numerals and signs has been an important step in understanding what parts of a text were talking about calendar days, and what parts were describing the events that happened on those days, the when and the what. Drawing from research by Javier Urcid, I based the decipherment of Zapotec glyphs on two guiding principles. First, the glyphs represented elements of grammar from a specific language. And second, the specific language expressed in the glyphs was an ancient form of Zapotec, related to the native languages still spoken in parts of central Oaxaca today. Urcid proposes that the images of the calendar-related glyphs strongly correspond with Zapotec names used by the 16th century, especially for days and years. Because each calendar glyph stands for a distinct unit of time named in the Zapotec language, and therefore each a basic unit of meaning, it supports the case for reading Zapotec glyphs as a logographic system. On display at the Monte Alban Site Museum, these two stone monuments are numbered Stele 12 at left and Stele 13 at right. They were originally set at the end of the Conquests Gallery at Building L, and they date between 500 and 300 BC. When read together, they tell a historical account, according to Joyce Marcus and Kent Flannery. With some liberties, the following translation is based on their reading. In the year 4 lightning, the chief, firstborn of his line, acted on the sacred day 8 water. The chief, born on the day 10 jaguar, seized his enemy, second-born of their line, on the 4th day of the month. Archaeologists have named the final glyph W for its shape, and it is an important character because of its possible yet unclear relation with the 365-day solar calendar. John Justison has proposed that it could be counting days within a lunar cycle. The texts in these two glyphs may therefore have one of the oldest references to either the solar or lunar cycle in Mesoamerica, indeed in the entire New World. Monte Alban was an early example of an architectural scheme that would appear over and over in Mesoamerican cities. The marriage of military domination with astrological alignment guided building projects. To conquer the lands, you must look to the stars. No better structure embodies this idea at Monte Alban than the so-called Building J. Shaped like an arrow pointing in a direction skewed from the rest of the platform, the building's walls boast panels engraved with images of conquest by calendar signs. You may remember a previous episode on the Codex Mendoza in this writing systems playlist. In the first chapter, I explained how the Aztecs could depict conquered cities with a burning house attached to a glyph, each identifying a community by a combination of signs. The images on Building J of Monte Alban used a similar principle. Glyphs specify locations, and the upside-down head represents the ruler of each, defeated and brought down beneath the might of the Monte Alban Zapotec. We will use this Building J detail as an example. The first element to find indicates that the glyph set is showing a community. Like the Mixtec codices of centuries later, Zapotec glyphs used a stylized hill to specify a settlement. Sprouts flanking the upper corner suggest that its land was especially fertile. The tri-spiral glyph at top identifies the community, a place probably within Monte Alban's vicinity. The inverted head denotes the community's fallen leader, and a date glyph at the very bottom marks when the conquest took place. Its hut shape resembles the glyph for the day that the colonial Zapotec called La, corresponding to the day sign of reed plant in the Aztec calendar. Behind the bottom edge are remains of the number 8, counted by 3 fragmentary dots in a bar for the number 5. Read together, the glyphs tell that on the day 8 La, Monte Alban conquered a neighboring community with ample land. The next episode on Native American writing systems will begin our look into their most iconic expression, Mayan glyphs. Join us for the following installment.